Our Mediterranean Odyssey began on February 28, 2014. Celebrating our first dinner in Rome, we look back on our first day's adventure. After a long overnight flight and finally arriving at our hotel, we were disappointed that it was raining and the hop-on, hop-off buses were full. So we were only able to visit the Basilica of St. Mary Major, one of the 5 great ancient basilicas in Rome. The first church built on that site was in the early 400s. Over the centuries, there have been many buildings and many names. It was finally named Santa Maria Maggiore because it is the largest of the 26 churches in Rome dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Its 18th century exterior concedes one of the best preserved Byzantine interiors in Rome. We were amazed at its beauty. Saturday morning, it was off to our home for the next 11 days, aboard NCL's Norwegian Jade. The Port of Civita is 50 miles west of Rome. Thank heavens we had transfers. Once settled in our cabins, it was time to wish a bon voyage and toast to a great adventure. The first of many. Bright and early Sunday morning, we arrived in the port of Livorno. Our tour began with a scenic drive through the breathtaking Tuscan countryside to the fascinating city of Florence. The Duomo il Frianza Cathedral stands tall over the city with its magnificent Renaissance dome. The cathedral was begun at the end of the 13th century, and the dome was added in the 15th century. No structure in Florence can ever be built taller than the dome. The exterior is covered with a mixture of pink, white, and green marble. The inside, by contrast, is pretty stark and plain. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to take any pictures once inside. Since the 14th century, Florence's most famous square is the Piazza della Signora, the heart of the historic center and a free open-air sculpture exhibit. It holds some important statues, including a copy of Michelangelo's David, one of the masterpieces of the Renaissance sculpture. The statue was created in 1504 for the city of Florence and placed in front of the Piazza Vecchio. In 1873, the statue was replaced by a replica. The original is now in the Galleria della Accademia. The Piazza Vecchio, Florence's town hall, still the seat of the local government. It is a working building housing many offices that Florentines use on a daily basis, as well as the mayor's office. The square is almost an open-air sculpture museum with plenty of statues that remind visitors of Florence's glorious past. The plaza has been Florence's political center since the Middle Ages. Around the plaza are cafes and restaurants. Another of Florence's top attractions is the Ponte Vecchio, the oldest and most famous bridge over the Arno River. It was built in 1345. It is the only Florence bridge to survive during World War II. In 1944, the Germans blew up all but one of the bridges over the River Arno as they retreated north, having occupied the city. It is now lined with shops and traditionally mostly jewelers. Before heading for lunch, we decided to enjoy some of the local color and have a glass of wine at one of the street cafes. Lunch was served at the Borghese Palace. It was our first experience at dining in a real palace. We were astounded by the opulence of it. At one time, it had been the home of one of Napoleon's sisters, Pauline. Santa Croce, consecrated in 1442, is a magnificent medieval Gothic basilica and the largest Franciscan church in the world. It houses 16 chapels. Amongst the notables buried there are Michelangelo and Galileo. Before heading on to Pisa, we decided it was wine time again. Found in the Piazza del Duomo, or Cathedral Square, in the city of Pisa, Italy, the famous bell tower, commonly known as the Leaning Tower of Pisa, has stood slightly off-kilter for centuries. Construction on the tower began in 1173, and it quickly became clear that the unstable soil and minimal foundation on which the tower was built were not enough to prevent it from sinking. After leaving the tower incomplete for nearly a century, construction resumed in the late 13th century, with the final level completed in 1372. The tower is home to 7 bells, each comprising a different note on the musical scale. Bright and early Monday morning, we pulled into the beautiful Port of Monaco. What a picturesque place for the rich and the famous. Monte Carlo has arguably one of the most beautiful harbors in the world. What makes it so spectacular? The dramatic cliffs and the multi-million-dollar mega yachts. Thousands of yachts bobbed in the harbor, one more fabulous than the next. Condominiums stacked up on the mountain. We saw no single-family homes. We went into the casino, which was absolutely opulent from top to bottom. We could not gamble before 2 p.m. Wagers were very high, and they did not have penny slots. Monaco's royal palace is situated high on a hilltop overlooking the principality and the sea. Unfortunately, it was pouring rain, and because of the forecast, we did not have our umbrellas, so we very quickly made our way into the St. Nicholas Cathedral. The cathedral is relatively new by European standards, built in 1875. The location of this cathedral, just around the corner from the Grimaldi Palace, is so lovely. It's a wonderful, inviting place to visit, particularly since the entire cathedral is open to visitors. The many little shrines off the main altar are very pretty, and some are quite ornate. The highlight of the visit to the cathedral is the grave of Princess Grace and Prince Rainier, lying next to each other. It's awesome to walk around remembering this is the place where all the royal weddings and funerals in Monaco take place. Tuesday morning, we loaded onto a water taxi over to Toulon, France. Toulon, France is a port city and military harbor in the southeast part of the country. We took a harbor tour around the safest bay in France. Many battleships were docked there, as well as the ferry over to Corsica and Sardinia. It is a vital French port with a long history of trade and commerce. Toulon is now a modern international city that retains its cultural heritage. During World War II, Toulon was invaded by the Germans in 1942. The seamen scuttled all the boats so that the Nazis couldn't use them, and the town was freed by the Allied forces in 1944. The port functions not just as a military harbor and naval base, but also as the cultural center of the town in many ways. The Royal Tower was begun in 1514. It was the first fort to be built to protect the harbor at Toulon. You will find charming terrace cafes, a wide variety of restaurants, public squares, and all kinds of boutiques and markets. It was cold and windy when we arrived, but as the day went on, it warmed up significantly. Kate tried to strike up a conversation with 2 of the locals, but they could not speak English. And Jack and John didn't have any luck picking up any French honeys either. So they gave up, and we all had lunch at a sidewalk cafe overlooking the bay. Wednesday morning brought us a beautiful day of sunshine as we arrived in Barcelona. Our tour began with a drive up to Montjuïc, a park on top of a hill overlooking the city. Barcelona was spread out before us in all of its glory. Today, the Montjuïc is a mostly recreational area with a large number of sites and attractions, most of them originating from 2 major events that took place there: the 1929 International Expedition and the 1992 Summer Olympic Games, hosting 9,800 athletes representing 169 nations. Barcelona is the second largest city in Spain, and the principal industrial and commercial center of the country. It is a large, magnificent port city with wide boulevards, impressive buildings, great food, and many memorable places to visit. A vital element of Barcelona's identity is its rich architectural and artistic tradition. Much time can be spent touring through the city's spectacular cultural attractions. There are striking examples of world-famous architecture, a mix of old and modern buildings, beautiful squares, glorious parks, wonderful fountains, and great shopping. In Barcelona, they have a wonderful way of camouflaging their buildings as they refurbish them. A large painted canvas hides the ugliness of reconstruction. Since bullfighting in Spain has been out of fashion by animal rights movements, the old bull ring has been sitting unused for many years. The old building is now breathing new life as a trendy shopping lifestyle complex. The Sagrada Familia Cathedral, designed by the master architect Antonio Gaudí, has been under construction since 1882, and they've still got another 30 to 80 years to go, depending on funding and resources, before it will be finished. Just imagine the dedication, devotion, commitment involved in creating a building for that length of time. Some people love it and some people hate it, but whatever you think, I guarantee it will cause a reaction one way or another. Another of Gaudí's architectural masterpieces was the Casa Batlló, a facade that is original, fantastical, and full of imagination. Construction on the magnificent Gothic Cathedral of Barcelona commenced in 1298 on the site of the Romanesque temple. The work was carried out in 3 stages over 150 years. The beautiful cathedral receives 3 million visitors each year. The magnificence of its Gothic art, the splendor of Gothic and Baroque altarpieces are evident to all observers. King Square is a picturesque plaza where Ferdinand and Isabella received Columbus following his first New World voyage. Today it houses a superb history museum with significant Roman ruins underground. We encountered a couple of groups of school children learning about the history of the former orphanage that was part of the Barcelona Cathedral history. Arriving in Valencia on Thursday morning to see another day of sunshine, we were stunned to see what lay ahead of us. The City of Arts and Sciences is now an ensemble of 6 areas in the dry riverbed of the now diverted river in Valencia. It is an impressive example of modern architecture. The city, as it is now called, is made up of an opera house and performing arts center, an IMAX cinema, planetarium, laserarium, a walkway and garden, a science museum, an open-air aquarium and oceanographic park, Agora, a versatile space that will allow the holding of varied events. Surrounded by attractive streams and pools of water, it and the surrounding areas of the city are typically used as a relaxing place to walk day and night with an open-air bar. The Valencia Lookout is the newest tourist attraction. It is the tallest portable Ferris wheel in Europe. Touring around the city, we passed many of its top tourist attractions. The Bull Ring had been the center of Valencia's bullfighting for almost 150 years, but bullfight is now banned. The Sereno Towers are considered to be the largest Gothic city gateway in all of Europe. The Columbus Market was opened on Christmas Eve in 1916. For years it had been used as a flower and vegetable market. It was restored in 2003, and today it is an upscale recreational place. Valencia celebrates each year the final days of winter and the arrival of spring with spectacular festival known as Las Fallas. Displayed on every corner all over the city are colorful, giant papier-mâché figures, often 20 feet tall or more, that have been paraded through the streets and then placed in fantasy groups to tower over excited spectators. They are stuffed with gunpowder and fireworks, and at midnight on the 19th of March, they are set ablaze. The police were always present trying to hold down the street merchants and the pickpockets. As we walked around the area, we noticed that people were already getting ready for the festival to begin on March 15th. Home to many tourist attractions, Plaza de la Reina is one of the oldest and busiest plazas in Valencia and the city's beating heart. It is situated in the beautiful old town, packed with both cars and pedestrians. Whether you choose to visit the famous Valencia Cathedral, take a tour of the city, or wander the streets, the Plaza de la Reina is the place to be. It is bounded by the cathedral and its bell tower as one of Valencia's top tourist sites and a major cultural landmark. The center of the plaza plays host to a small patch filled with flowers and benches where visitors can take a break and watch the world go by. The square is lined with excellent selection of cafes, terraces, and restaurants, and beautiful Spanish ladies grace the landscape in traditional costumes. Before heading back to the ship, we had some time to enjoy a couple of pitchers of sangria, eat some paella, and Jack and John also had time to have a chocolate gelato. Our ship arrived in Cagliari, Sardinia on Friday morning. Sardinia is the second largest island in the Mediterranean, with generally high and rocky coastlines. Driving through the town, we noticed a mixture of architecture ranging from very old to quite modern. Sardinia has deeply rooted traditions, some of which we were about to experience. On our way to our folkloric lunch and show, we stopped in front of the Basilica Bonaria while our guide explained its history. In 1325, the king donated the church to the friars of the Order of Our Lady of Mercy. They built a convent and still live there nowadays. From the viewpoint at Monte Upino, there is a great view of the old city and later with its salt ponds. An ancient city with a long history, Cagliari has seen the rule of several civilizations. Under the buildings of the modern city, there is a continuous stratification of human settlements of about 5,000 years, from the Neolithic to today. We were headed to the countryside, a rich agricultural area at the foot of the mountains. We stopped at a typical country house to enjoy a lively folklore performance with dancers dressed in ancient Sardinian costumes. Food and wine always come first to mind, but their music and dances are also an integral part of their traditions and culture. This unique instrument consists of 3 reed canes, 2 of them glued together with beeswax, produce a distinctive harmony, which have their roots many thousands of years ago, as demonstrated by a famous statue of a man playing the 3 canes, dated to 2000 BC. While we watched, we tried some of the local delicacies and cookies prepared according to traditional recipes, all accompanied by Sardinian wines. We were treated to their local music and dance. After learning about Sardinian food, dance, and traditions, we returned to the ship, happy little campers. Saturday, we had a whole day at sea, and there is no better way to spend it than at the martini bar, sampling all the different kinds of martinis they could make, and they did make some good ones. By the end of the cruise, the bartenders were our very best friends. Sunday morning, we arrived in Tunisia. We were so excited to think that we were really in Africa. Tunisia is located on the shores of the Mediterranean, between Algeria and Libya. Awaiting to greet us was a combo of 3 playing traditional Tunisian music, nothing like ours. Also there to meet us was one of the local camels, all saddled and ready to ride. Jack and John had a discussion as to who was going to ride him, but both chickened out. Penny wanted to pet him and take him home, but John protested. On our way into Tunis, we passed the beautiful seaside village of Sidi Bou Said. Tunisia is incredibly diverse, combining Arabic, Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and French influences into every aspect of local life. Tunisia gives you the opportunity to explore modern cities and ancient ruins at the same time. Experience unique cultures, stunning sights, and warm local hospitality while exploring the far corners of this underrated nation. Once we arrived in Tunis, the capital of Tunisia, our guide pointed out the Zaytuna Mosque. We were only able to view it from a distance as non-Muslims are not allowed inside and the area was under reconstruction. The mosque was erected in the 9th century, but the minaret was not erected until the 19th century. The mosque was the center of learning and intellectual pursuits in Tunisia and is considered the first Islamic university. 99% of the population is Muslim. The next point of interest was the Cathedral of St. Vincent de Paul. The church was opened in 1897 while Tunisia was under French rule. It seemed odd to see a Catholic church in a Muslim country. Next, we came to the Gate to the Sea, which the French erected in the 18th century, dividing the old city and the new French city. Tunis has long since been famous for its beautiful doors and windows. While the houses might be simple and unadorned, wealth was expressed through the workmanship of these wooden elements. The 12th century Old Town is a site not to be missed. It is a UNESCO World Heritage listed site and home to the bustling souks and a maze of colorful streets. There are goldsmiths, pottery works, fabrics, and much, much more. And then there is the area of touristic items. We wandered through the streets and were disgusted at the conditions that we found. Our guide kept reiterating how much things had changed in Tunis, how clean and well kept everything was now. We found it to be totally the opposite. The filth and the smells were overpowering. We couldn't wait to move on. With a history stretching back nearly 3 millennia, Carthage was once the heart of a powerful Mediterranean empire before being leveled by the Romans in the Third Punic War in 146 BC. It sprang from the ashes to become an important early Christian center before again being destroyed by Islamic invaders in the late 7th century. Now a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Carthage is a short train ride from Tunis. As we wandered around the ruins, it was astonishing to think that this area has been in major importance for over 2,500 years. As we looked at some of the artifacts, we wondered how that long ago could they have carved those intricate details in those stones? Or how did they form such perfectly round columns? Wander with us as we did, awestruck by its beauty and its history. For a long time, the Cathedral of St. Louis was the only Roman Catholic cathedral in Carthage. Since Tunisia is now a Muslim country, it is now being used as a concert hall. In Tunisia, more people seem to like music than like Jesus. Our last stop of the day was at the Bardo Museum, the oldest and the most important Tunisian museum. Thousands of objects originating from excavations carried out all over the country are on display. Thanks to its collection of mosaics, the Bardo Museum has gained an international reputation for the richest, the most varied, and the most refined collection. Bright and early Monday morning, we arrived in Palermo, Sicily, to a beautiful sunrise. Palermo, the regional capital of Sicily, is one of those cities with its own very distinct, almost tangible atmosphere, a place of mystery where reality often outperforms the imagination and preconceived stereotypes. It is a bustling Mediterranean center whose 1 million inhabitants are a fascinating cocktail of apparently conflicting characteristics. Palermo's history has been anything but stable, as the town has passed from one dominating power to another with remarkable frequency. Its strategic position in the middle of the Mediterranean brought wave upon wave of invaders. Visiting Palermo is still somewhat of an adventure in a world where so many places have become tourist-friendly to a fault. You won't find many restaurants with menus translated into 5 different languages. You may have trouble communicating in English in many places, and some parts of the old town center have remained untouched since they were bombed during World War II. The often faded grandeur of many of Palermo's wonderful palaces and churches in the center gives way to popular areas whose way of life doesn't fully belong to the 21st century. This is particularly true of the markets, whose Arabic origins are still evident today thanks to their noise, smells, colors, narrow streets, and the splendid array of food and other goods on display, and the general souk atmosphere. We were disappointed to arrive in the rain Tuesday morning in Naples. Naples, Napoli in Italian, is the 3rd most populated city in Italy and the biggest city in southern Italy. It is in close proximity to many interesting sites, such as Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius, the Amalfi Coast, and the Bay of Naples. Naples is a lively and vibrant city, full of wonderful historical and artistic treasures and narrow, winding streets with small shops. But Naples has a reputation for corruption and crime, both petty and organized. It is filthy and very large and overbearing. It is crime-infested, and it is most definitely like nowhere else in Italy. But change is afoot. A new mayor has ushered in initiatives to clean up the city, beginning with the unclogging of streets by disposing of uncollected trash and redirecting chaotic traffic flows. A city's central revival. Make no mistake, problems persist, but those who remain aware of the vices in this spirited ancient city will be rewarded by its virtues. The Fountain of the Giant dates back to the 1600s. It currently rests on the promenade overlooking the bay. The Galleria Umberto I is a great glass-roofed arcade, perhaps the largest in the world. It was begun in 1887. The arcade is cross-shaped with a pretty mosaic of the zodiac on the floor at the center, and its arching dome is 184 feet tall. A perfect example of a storybook medieval castle is the Castel Nuovo, perched on the Bay of Naples. It has a moat, 5 round towers, pennants, and a bridge, everything you could ask for in a castle. The splendid castle was originally built in 1282 and has been redone several times since. The castle is surrounded by a long, deep moat, which used to be covered by the sea. It is said that many prisoners were thrown into the moat, where their bodies mysteriously disappeared. A series of inspections, a hole was discovered through which a crocodile used to enter the moat and devour the bodies of the unfortunate victims. After the ship docked on Wednesday, we headed back into Rome. We were totally blown away by the traffic and the driving conditions in Rome. We went back to the same hotel we'd stayed in previously and headed off for our day of sightseeing. Modern and old, past and present go side by side. When you are in Rome, be prepared to step into the world's biggest open-air museum. Rome is one of the world's most photogenic cities. Not surprising when you remember what's there. The Trevi Fountain, St. Peter's Square, the Vatican, the Spanish Steps, the Colosseum, and much, much more. Beautiful statues and fountains everywhere you look. One of the most impressive buildings in Rome is that of the Victor Emmanuel Monument. This white marble monument dominates the Piazza Vienza. It was completed in 1911 as a tribute to the first king of a united Italy. It is now the home of the tomb of the unknown soldier from World War I and a museum. Great views can be had from the top. The Roman Forum was the central area of the city around which ancient Rome was developed. Here was where commerce, business, prostitution, cult, and the administrative of justice took place, space where religious activities were conducted, and the communal hearth of the city. The Colosseum is probably the most impressive building in the Roman Empire. It was the largest building of the era. The monumental structure has fallen into ruin, but even today, it is an imposing and beautiful sight. The Colosseum could accommodate some 55,000 spectators who entered the building through no less than 80 entrances. Above the ground are 4 stories. The upper story consisted of seating for lower classes and women. The lowest story was reserved for prominent citizens. Below the ground were rooms with mechanical devices and cages containing wild animals. The cages could be hoisted, enabling the animals to appear in the middle of the arena. The southern side of the Colosseum was felled by an earthquake in 847. Parts of the building, including the marble cladding, were later used for construction of other landmark buildings, such as St. Peter's Basilica. The Trevi Fountain, made famous in the movie 3 Coins in a Fountain, is the most famous and arguably the most beautiful fountain in all of Rome. The Spanish Steps is a famous meeting place for locals and tourists alike. The steps are wide, irregular gathering place consisted of 138 steps placed in a mix of curves, straight flights, vistas, and terraces. They connect the lower piazza to the beautiful twin-towered church above, dominating the skyline. The world's smallest country in size and population, with only 1,000 residents, Vatican City occupies about 2/10 of a square mile and is completely encircled by the city of Rome. Vatican City serves as a spiritual center for millions of practicing Roman Catholics worldwide. But Vatican City is also a tourist magnet thanks to the presence of some of Rome's most popular attractions, including St. Peter's Basilica and the Vatican Museums, home to the Sistine Chapel. Today, Rome is a vibrant, lively, and cosmopolitan city which inhabits the past. Everywhere are reminders of greatness with a spectacular fusion of the ancient and the modern, a unique heritage like no other city in the world. It is legendary. It was the mythical city founded by Romulus and Remus, built on the fabled Seven Hills, the center of history for centuries, home to nobles, popes, and some of the greatest architects and artists of all time. Its republican form of government was imitated by numerous nations. There are countless churches filled with stunning artwork, museums filled of priceless displays, and loads of beautiful corners and parks to see and enjoy. In short, there's never a boring moment when you're in Rome. The party's over. It's time to head for home. We had to have one last drink on the rooftop garden. There was one issue that could never be resolved, the mystery of the bidet. Tried as we might, it could never be mastered, and Katie almost hung herself in frustration.